Peace, Hotep. My name is Ra, broadcasting on behalf of 13SignsAstrology.com, doing inquiries. I got a recent question via the YouTube on my videos that I've been doing in regards to the extraterrestrials. And someone asked me, what is the relationship that black people or African Americans or melanated people have with these extraterrestrials, based upon the fact that in history it shows that black people were the first people that were created. This was the question, pretty much in a nutshell. And the reason why this person asked this question is because in one of my other videos I talked about how the 13 bloodlines of the elite actually trace back to a group of extraterrestrials. So I need to clear up a few things with that statement. Now, as far as these European elitists that we have right now, most of them are Caucasian and of European descent. And what you have to realize is that they got into the seat of power through the Moorish Empire. The Europeans and the Caucasians that you see as elitists now got into the seat of power through the Moorish Empire. When you deal with Britain and the British, the term Brit means covenant, and Ish means man, according to Hebrew. So British means man of the covenant. So the question you have to ask yourself, man of what covenant? Man of what covenant? And in that, when you deal with the covenant, you'll find out that, and this isn't racism, this is facts, that the Moors left those European tribes that had the most melanin and the most Moorish blood in their veins in charge. And even to this day, these elitists, these globalists, these ruling families that you see, like your Rothschilds and all these people, they trace themselves back to Moorish tribes. They trace themselves back to Moorish tribes. And this is how they got their power, through the fact that they had certain bloodlines. And the Moors, when they went into Europe, they found the Europeans in a state of savagery and not understanding civilization and not understanding government. So the Moors took it upon themselves to create a renaissance. What they did was they created a renaissance in Europe. So when you read about the European Renaissance, you're actually hearing about a group of Moors that went into Europe. And I'm summing all of this up. And they basically started a renaissance as to where they cleaned the European up. In the lessons of Moses, when you read about the story of Moses, that's pretty much what you're reading about. You're reading about when the Moors began to go into the European lands, and they left out of Africa, these Moors, which was a patriarchal group of Moors that left out of Africa and went into Europe. And they began to clean this the European or the Caucasian up, and they raised up your elite families. When you hear about the Rothschilds and you hear about him, the Rothschild, Amtel Rothschild, the guy that started banking or whatever, you read about him coming up with this system of banking, but they never teach you. Most of the researchers never go into where he learned this system of banking from. He learned this system of banking from the Babylonian Empire, which was controlled by Moors or people of Moorish descent. When I say Moors, I'm talking about people of Moorish descent or melanated people. So saying all that to say that the Moors are the ones that raised up the 13 bloodlines or the 13 ruling families that you have sitting in the seat today. The Moors are the ones that started all these secret societies that you see today, such as the Knights of the Templar and things of that nature. All of this came from the Moors or whatever, and they initiated and taught the European and initiated him into this doctrine. And even some of your Jews to this day, some of your higher up Catholics and Jesuit priests know that I'm telling the truth. They know their history. They know exactly who taught them and how they got into positions of power. Now, they're not going to teach it because it's up to you to teach yourself, your own vast estate. And you do have certain Caucasian Europeans that are putting out books. I have some of them myself that are bearing witness to their African origins as far as them stemming and coming from a group of Africans. Because as many of you know, we are responsible for bringing the Europeans and the Caucasians here to this planet. Now, with all this information being said, that does not make melanated individuals any chosen people or some type of better person because you created some Caucasians or whatever. So you feel like now that that's your birthright and your covenant because you created these Europeans and Caucasians, so therefore you're better. That doesn't make you better. That doesn't make you better just because you created some Europeans, because actually what you did, and when you created these Europeans, you really actually did this without the consent of the Galactic Federation anyway. You know what I'm saying? And when you created these Europeans, when you actually, at first you didn't even want to teach them the knowledge of themselves. You pushed them into the caves of Europe and things of that nature, and it took another group of Moors to come back because they had to balance that karma. So the group of Moors had to come back into Europe, which was later on. I mean, thousands of years after the Caucasian was created, and they're called the Canaanites in the Bible. So thousands of years after the Canaanites were created, it took a group of Moors to come back into Europe and to begin to teach the Caucasian civilization and to strive to balance the karma that these ancient Africans created. And even on the pyramid walls, I know like some of our researchers and scholars like Brother Bobby Hemmitt even talks about this when he says that the ancient Egyptians actually regretted creating this Tamahu. That's what they call them in Egypt, the Tamahu. And the Tamahu stands for the created race or the created beings. So they regretted even creating the Tamahu because they knew that they were out of universal law and universal order and bringing another race and species of people and cloning another race of species of people onto the planet without the consent of the Galactic Confederation. So actually it was a sin. And the sin, and actually the Moorish descent, or Africans, or black people, or African Americans, whatever you want to call us, were the ones that were originally responsible for this injustice. So we had to go back and teach the European and initiate the European into these secret societies and teach him civilization. And this is how you find out now, like all these years later, and you see that Africa and all the indigenous people are basically at the bottom of civilization right now because of the karmic debt that they owe to the universe and creating a group and a race of people without the consent of the Galactic Confederation. So just because you're Nubian, Moor, Hebrew Israelite, Pan-African, African-American, Mayan, I don't care what you call yourself, just because you're all of these things does not make you better. It doesn't make you better at all. You're not the chosen people. It has nothing to do with that. The chosen people is dealing with something totally different, which is actually dealing with an astrological thing that I'm not going to go into here. So you're not the chosen people just because you were first. That's just like the firstborn of a seed or a flock of children or whatever, and the one that's the firstborn feeling like they're better than the ones that came after them or the younger children. Just because you were a firstborn in the family doesn't make you better. You know what I'm saying? So I'll definitely say that. But I will say that as far as the extraterrestrials and how they tie into this thing is that people of melanated hue and skin color were the first group to be contacted by these extraterrestrials. People of melanin were the first group to be contacted by these extraterrestrials, and this can be proven through the pyramids, through the Mayans. All of these people were basically people of melanin, people of color. The Mayans, the Moors, the Dogons, the Egyptians, the Nubians. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I don't care like what group of people you deal with. Even the ancient Chinese people go back to a group of melanated beings or a group of Moors. So, and as far as the melanin being deficient in some of our brothers and sisters of the European and Caucasian race, and yes, I said brothers and sisters because we're all part of the same family. But as far as them being melanin deficient, this comes from a overcalcified pineal gland or pineal gland, and it's up to you. So you can teach the Caucasian, the melanin recessive beings how to heal and how to gain melanin and how to balance their chakras so that they can get melanin. And I'm going to be working on some products to help our fellow Caucasians and just all of these different melanin deficient beings out there, species out there. I'm working on products to help to teach how to uncalcify the pineal gland. Because there are products and ways out there. That's why we got to get into alchemy, and people don't want to teach this or whatever. But I mean, and some people probably don't even know how to do it anyway. But I know for a fact that Dr. Jewel Pookrum teaches this as well. But there are ways to balance the pineal gland or the pineal gland so that melanin can begin to produce at more of a rapid rate inside of our melanin deficient brothers and sisters out there. But yeah, I mean, the extraterrestrials that came to this planet, get back on track, they came to, basically they created, actually they didn't come to, because it's really, I'm getting out of hand here even by saying came to. They created us, people of color. Melanated people were created by a higher group of extraterrestrials that had melanin too, and that looked just like us. See, the group of beings that came from Sirius were melanated beings. They were melanated beings, and this is not the same group as your reptilians that many people know about now. And actually, even when you deal with your reptilians, there's different species of reptilians. I believe there's 3 different species of reptilians anyway. But as far as this group of Syrians that came down and created the African people and those of Moorish descent and Nubian descent, this group was melanated. They were melanated as well. They were melanated as well. And actually, believe it or not, even in the sand in ancient Egypt, the sands that you see that were brown at one point, those sands were at one point black. They had melanin in those sands. It took melanin to bring life to this planet. So melanin is responsible for all life. Melanin is responsible for all life, so you can't get past it. Even when you do intergalactic space travel, melanin is linked to the dark matter. And the universe is 90% dark matter. And melanin is linked to dark matter. So it takes melanin. So, I mean, a whole lot of the researchers out there that are researching the extraterrestrials fail to mention the fact that these were melanated beings that created us. And Zachariah Stitchin did teach that in his books. He taught that they were melanated beings. He taught this in his books in the very end. He didn't teach it in some of the older books. When he wrote the books on Inky and all of them, he talked about how they came to the African species, and not only that, but they created the African species first. And this is like not new. I mean, this is nothing new. Pretty much like what I'm saying as far as the melanated people being first. I mean, because you can even go back to the bones of what they call Lucy, and you find out that Lucy was an African from Kenya, a black woman. And she's the oldest ancestor on this planet. The reason being is because she's a melanated being, and actually women are older than men. So women is the highest and oldest species on this planet. Actually, the black woman, believe it or not. So yeah, I mean, it's just the facts or whatever. So when these extraterrestrials first came down and they created melanated people, or our people now, and they created us in their image and in their likeness. So that's why the Bible would say that we created man in our image and in our likeness, because these were melanated beings that came from Sirius and created us. And not only that, when they created various portions and parts of the planet Earth, it was melanin in the sand. But what happened was that people went over to Kemet and different places and extracted the melanin out of the sand. And right now, your ruling families have banks and banks of melanin stored up. They have banks of melanin stored up because they sell them in pills like the melatonin pills and things of that nature. They got banks and banks of melanin stored up right now because they know that melanin is actually a result of sexual prowess. Those that are melanin dominant and those that have more melanin is a sign of sexual prowess and potency. I hear that they're even using melanin in Viagra now. The so-called Viagra, they're using melanin. And I actually did I did a video on that. I touched on it briefly, but I'm just going into it more now. So as far as the melanin is concerned, the extraterrestrials that first came down and created the human species, the original extraterrestrials. Now there's over 250,000 different groups of extraterrestrials. So I don't want to confuse you, but I'm talking about the original patriarchs, or the original the extraterrestrials that came down here and created us were melanated beings from the Sirius star constellation. And this is why the ancient Egyptians, the Dogons, they revered Sirius so much, because this was melanin dominant beings that created this planet. But just because now that you are the children, the people that are of melanin are the children of this higher race of extraterrestrials, doesn't make you better. And actually, if you're not nurturing your melanin and you're not eating properly, you're actually frowned upon by the higher extraterrestrials or whatever, those that the guardians that are looking out, the extraterrestrials that are looking out for our people. You're frowned upon. You're frowned upon because your light or your halo cannot be seen by them because you're eating improperly. You see, you're toxic. Your melanin is toxic. And this is why as far as like people of color, black people, Nubians, and all the people of color are on the bottom of the totem pole right now on the planet, because we're not nurturing our melanin and we're not doing right by our melanin, and we think that we're some chosen race or some chosen group and the children of Israel, all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? This is all bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, just to keep it real, because you think that you're the chosen person just because you're black and you're just going to make it. Like, it don't got nothing to do with that. You got to still, this is real, man. Like, I don't believe in no mysteries, man. Like, this is real. If you're going to make it through this pole shift, it's because you took the responsibility upon yourself to do the right things and to nurture your melanin, to nurture your nature, to eat the right foods, to get into the metaphysical sciences. Like Most of our people are very religious. They're scared of the occult when they're the ones that invented the occult. You're scared to get a natal reading. You're scared. You're just scared. And you're the ones that invented everything that you see going on right now. You invented the devil, the concept of the devil. You know what I'm saying? You're scared talking about worshiping the devil. You're scared about the musicians talking about they worship the devil. It's just a whole bunch of fear. And fear is a demon. I'm going to do a video on demons soon. But fear is one of the demons. You see? So, I mean, I know I'm coming with a lot of information here, but yeah, I mean, so I'm just trying to really hit the point and be balanced here. I have to deal with my eye. And yes, I'm just saying that the melanated individuals did come first, yes, but that doesn't make you better. That's my point. That doesn't make you better. The extraterrestrials did contact you first and did create you first, and you were the original species that was created, but that doesn't make you better. If you're not doing right now, you're actually suffering from karma if you're not doing right by yourself. And in your heart chakra and nurturing, living from your heart chakra and trying to balance the planet and trying to be a beacon of light and a healer and to heal the races of people and teach them how to create melanin in themselves and teach them the alchemy and things of that nature. So you don't want to deal with your own scientists because it's going to take the people of melanin to balance this thing out. And the thing is that people of melanin don't want to step up because they're stuck in religions and things of that nature. So people of melanin need to wake up. You're not better. You're not better. And those Caucasians and Europeans out there that want to suppress people with melanin are no better either. You're going to have to deal with karma as well. So this whole planet is just unbalanced. It's just unbalanced. But I'm setting the record straight here to basically say that yes, the extraterrestrials did create the melanated beings first, and we were created in the image and likeness of a group of beings from Sirius, and from there the extraterrestrials that are dealing with the world powers now, as far as the reptilians and different species like that, are not the same species. Like they haven't came back. The Syrians that created us are on their way back, but they haven't all came back yet, and there's a certain date when that's going to happen, and I'll touch on that later, but they haven't all came back yet. You see, the original the original custodians that created us have not came back yet to this planet to balance and set the record straight. But they will be back soon. They will be back soon, so people need to wake up and smell the coffee and get with the program. Hope this helps. Until we meet again, I wish you wealth, prosperity, contentment, happiness, and love.